Remember, following that employment report, we are seeing strength in the markets, weakness in the VIX, strength in the dollar, strength on yields. Currently, markets see as S&P and the Nasdaq up spot 7%, the Dow up spot 6%.
Good morning, everybody. Jas Maladay, Ellen, what'd you guys think about yesterday? Pretty comical day, if I gotta say so myself. Unemployment report just released. Oh yeah, yesterday was it was honestly hysterical. Yeah, I don't know if Trump will say anything about it. I mean, I think we already knew he was on the list. What are my thoughts on QMCO? It's not a real company. CRK. No, I don't think this needs more tightening. Looks good. Any thoughts on Rocket Lab? Yeah, I saw that move yesterday. It was effectively on, anything going against what Elon Musk does, right? So So all these little space companies were moving yesterday, whether it was Rocket Lab, ASTS. ASTS was kind of in an uptrend a few days before yesterday, but then I even noticed like Lunar and was it Lunar? SPCE. Just these silly moves up and then right back down to where they started. I wouldn't be chasing these turds. Yeah. Very simple. So you see oddity here where it gaps up on high volume. You're basing your entry off the close. Right? Same thing with Sezzle. I mean, even when this thing gapped down, look at where it found support immediately. Right at that high volume close level. And then what did it do? It's continuation from there. Sezzle did the same thing. Right? Gap up on high volume. Continuation from that level. Dave did the same thing. Gap up on that high volume. Continuation right from that close. Very simple setup. I'm going to bring in Oliver. You need to help me with your last name, brother. And Oliver, good morning, man. How are you?
What's up, Ariel? Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly fine.
My my last name is Wiedmeyer.
Wiedmeyer.
It's so funny because I was like thinking, I wonder if he's gonna try to say my last name or not.
No, no, I don't want to butcher it in public.
Yeah,
Oliver, man, how are you? Nice to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing good. It's an interesting morning, of course.
You want to talk about it?
Sure. So
hold on. Did you just not? Did that one go over your head?
What's that?
I said, did you want to talk about it?
Yeah. That's pretty good.
I had to, dude. I had to. I think
that's pretty good.
Gotta entertain myself somehow.
Yeah. So if you didn't have an X or you didn't have social media, how would you be coming into the session? That's how I try to come into every session. It's almost impossible to trade in a vacuum just because social media is, for one, so entertaining. But two, there is such a great community. You have obviously traders like you, and there's a ton of really amazing traders. But so coming into the session today, trying to ignore the Elon and Trump stuff, how have your positions been acting going into the week? How they've been acting this week? All those things. So for me, I've been getting knocked out of new buys. So I was going into yesterday's session already with a little bit of a heightened sense of, okay, new buys are getting knocked out, so I'm going to take it light. Yesterday we saw Bros breakout, and we also saw
even Amazon, I thought, kind of left a Meta-esque kind of small base as well.
Yeah. So I wasn't
paying. If you take a peek at, Meta a few days ago, right? I thought Meta a few days ago, you get this reclaim of the 200, this nice little neat consolidation, and then, nice push, tight day, follow through, right?
Right.
And then again, similar to today, tight day, looks like we're getting some follow through. So it's like exact same thing. And then Amazon, right? It just was a lagging, that it lagged Meta. So of course it trying to push out yesterday was the wrong day, yesterday was a down day in the market. Yeah. And then you even mentioned Bros, I thought 73 was a pretty interesting level. And then by day's end, full retrace. And it makes it a little bit annoying, doesn't it? Because if you had that level, you had to manage risk because you might have gotten stopped out intraday or took your gains off the table. Now this morning, it's coming right back through that pivot. And what do you do, right? Like, you opening 5 minute range? Like how exactly do you get yourself? What do you normally find yourself doing in a situation like
Yeah.
this?
So let's talk about bros, because so yesterday I was going into for me personally, yesterday I was going into the session with a very, very small focus list. Okay. I try to really pay attention to the number of buyable setups I have and whether that list is growing or shrinking. So whenever it's shrinking, I usually don't even trade those focus list names. I'll just watch them. So going into the session, I'm already thinking my new buys are not working and I only have a few names on my list. So when Bros and is Toast, Bros and Toast broke out yesterday, I did not touch them. Okay. And it's not because I have, and it sounds like I'm doing like Monday morning quarterbacking, but it's the truth. I have a Discord. I'm talking. They're like bros. And I'm like, good luck. But if that's my only name breaking out, then I don't want it. So I personally didn't touch any breakouts yesterday.
Right.
Which honestly, I was thinking, I started having some FOMO. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I was overthinking this, but I didn't chase.
Right.
So for me personally, when it comes to bros, I'm less of a breakout trader and I'm more of a reversal from the lows. So I actually bought bros. I don't know what day that is. That big reversal candle on your.
Oh, right here, 6-2.
No, about 4 days before.
Oh, down here against the 20. You bought 522.
Yeah, so that's how I prefer to buy.
Got it. Off of an ascending moving average.
Yes.
Beautiful. And then you just use that moving average as your guide?
I just move it up. Yep.
Yep. I like that. Perfect.
And so we're seeing we're seeing a shift from 4 weeks ago, right? Or 5 weeks ago. 4 or 5 weeks ago, you could basically buy anything.
Yep.
And I wrote down a list of stocks from the past, call it 5 days, that have just not been working. You have, if you want to let me share, or I can just
you
rattle
can
off.
share your screen.
Okay.
And then I can pull mine off and we can click yours on here.
Okay. Present. So share screen. Okay. So you should be able to see HIMS. Can you see HIMS, Ariel?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. So let's not start with HIMS. I have a list I'm looking at. So we'll start with Frog. So So this is, I'm just trying to talk through my process as far as where I'm at today, coming in today's session. So as I already talked about, new buys are not working. There's a heightened sense of volatility. So I'm going to rattle off a bunch of names from basically May 28th till yesterday of stocks that I track, stocks that I like. I like high ADR stocks. I like stocks that are flagging. I like stocks that are have huge gap ups. And so we'll just go through a bunch of these names. And they stopped working around May 28th. So that's how I'm going into today's session, thinking, okay, I have a heightened sense of volatility because of, and then we'll go through the list. So Frog, obviously, June 2nd, huge gap up. I mean, super tight. This is like everybody's dream to buy something like this. It has relative strength. It's coming off of a gap up, huge volume. So this is like, everyone should be buying this, but nothing happens with it.
Yeah, it just gives it all back the very next day. Exactly. The only issue I had with Frog, and I did spot this one as well, was just the distance from the 50 simple.
Yes. So I track ADR as well. And so at that time, I think it was around 5 or 6. So it was at 5.6. So I'm not touching that.
Yeah,
So
it's just it almost like needed more. It needs more sideways, and so
yeah,
that whole give
yeah.
back was actually pretty healthy.
And again, when this broke out, people in the chat were like, frog, frog, frog. And I'm like, good luck, but there's not enough upside. And then it closed so strong. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe
You're overthinking it.
maybe I'm overthinking it. And then it goes the next day and I just zipped my mouth and that was that. Hymns. Okay. So I bought him. Oh my God.
I was super annoyed with him. So I had it at like 52.80 as a reversal off the 20
Yeah.
simple.
Yep.
And on the very tight day, the next day it closes weak and comes
Yeah.
and tags my average. And I was just like, all right, I'm out of here. And
Yeah,
then,
so I had it long from 54.55 from the reversal. This is how I like to trade. I took a peel the next day a little bit. And then when it gaps up, I don't know why I didn't sell any. I was just whatever, but it came down to my average. So okay, so now I'm thinking, okay, frogs didn't work, hymns didn't work. I bought AI on the gap up.
oh yeah, above the 200. Yep.
I got this. I don't know how or why I sold. Normally, I don't sell all. I only sell a piece. But for some reason, I sold the whole thing. And I think it's because I was a little bit oversized. So I was like, I'll just take the money and run. But again, it has a nasty close and then follow through to the downside. So
Yep.
I'm just taking mental notes of this.
And these big gap ups have been doing that recently, whether we talk about CEG or even the hymns, right? Where you get this kind of abnormal gap up on news, whatever it might be. And then you're actually now seeing follow through to the downside.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we see 10 here. I bought going off of the 50-day moving average. I like a reversal. It has a follow, but I sold because it was just kind of like it was just too, I didn't really like it that much. But then it has this huge day 2 days later. And again, I'm like, oh my God. But now it's not going anywhere. Credo.
Yep.
Same big gap up. I try to buy this reversal. It was kind of a nightmare, but it's not doing anything. Oklo has a beautiful gap up. It runs, it gets tight, and then it starts to break out. And then nothing happens with it.
Yep.
So I say all this to say, even without the news or without interest rates or without Trump, without anything, I like to trail 5 days of my performance, but also how are things working in the market. So that's where I'm coming into today's session. You can look. I have no names on my focus list.
Yeah. Well, that tells you everything you need to know, right?
And so we're gonna do this, and then I'll have breakfast with my kid, and then
you enjoyed the day. And that that it was funny because I actually had a hard time putting together a watch list. I'm finding a handful of stocks, and it's just not much. Whether we're talking about just like still a simple little setup, like maybe KD or something like that, where you're just like, oh, okay, fine. Right. Here's a halfway decent looking setup. But boy, if you really have to go hunting for them, or like you said, the length and quality of your watch list tell you a lot about the current environment. I mean, I remember when I bought my Netflix, which I still own today, it's like within 3 days, I was able to get 4 names on with zero headache, right? It was first it was Netflix, then it was Palantir, then it was CrowdStrike, Uber. Then you start to get these gap ups in, Oddity, and then you start to get, Sezzle and Dave, and everything's got follow through. And SE gets above the 50, and Rubrik is guiding higher, and Zscaler goes through the flat pivot at 217.
You're a market wizard.
And I'm just over here like, I'm seeing you feel like everybody feels like a market wizard at that point.
Yeah.
But then, I'm starting to get stopped out of Uber.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing MSTR crack the 20 and follow through, yesterday. And I mean, I'm sure it could reclaim it today, but, something like Palantir lose the 20 on big volume. Obviously we saw what happened with Tesla where, loses the 200 violently. You think about Apple back of mind and you're like, this thing has yet to reclaim the 200, right? And names like AI where it tries to get above the 200 and then loses it. And so you start to see the failed breakouts in a frog. And then the vertical moves in whether it be a Zscaler or a Rubric or even a Carvana. Yeah. And you're just like, okay, right? At some point, even GEV for that matter. Some of these names have just, again, fairly healthy, but these frozen ropes.
Yeah.
And then these frozen ropes, if you go back here, eventually they lead to weeks of digestion, which is totally healthy. Right. And then what would you see is a simple breakout, maybe some continuation. Obviously, this one got deep seeked, but, now again, total frozen rope.
Yeah. And so, as someone who really bases whether they're going into the session with itchy fingers or not is obviously the number of setups. That's how I do it. But then there's a context of how come there are no setups for me. And it's not because there's not leadership. It's not because
we're in a bear market. They're just extended.
There's an unbelievable amount of leaderships, but as you said, frozen ropes. And so
look at this, dude.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
Look at Roblox. I'm over here all right, I missed it. And it had maybe a nice little pullback into the 10, right there. 70s.
So there would have been my entry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I get, and to me, that looks good. Even a little crack over these highs, and you're like, all right, fine. That looks pretty good.
Well, see, I don't do that. And I remember when that happened, and that's not my setup. So I don't trade it.
It's even the same thing with Rubric. That's the same reason I let it go.
Yeah.
I was like, give me a little bit of what right off the lows, straight up into the highs. There's no right-hand side of the chart, right? No volatility contraction. You're just going to go from 50 to 80, and then I'm supposed to buy it at 80, 80 something. And they made it very difficult. And so then you end up missing, the rest of this move, the other 20 points it's given.
And so for the
mind you, it's gapping up too on earnings, $104 now.
So for new traders who are just getting started and they're really excited and they just had a great month, backing off and slowing down is progress. And so I think it's super important to remember that. When you're a trader actively, you are either trading for an income, right? You're actually pulling money out of the market. So you don't want to be trading subpar. Or two, you're trading for sport. And then why would you want to take crap setups to chance losing some of your performance? So it's like going into the session, regardless of what happened with the news, it's all about keeping your equity curve nice, tight, to the right, and not risking what you've made. And so if you don't have a setup, then you don't have a setup. What's the big deal? Not that big. It's nothing.
I tell people all the time, treat it like a 30, 40-year career.
Exactly.
And, don't worry that even with bros yesterday, it's like, I haven't been wanting to buy the opening 15 minutes because what have we been seeing lately? You get that opening drive, you get a big flush out, sometimes even the break of low day. So now you're out of the chart and then it just finds that bottom, starts to grind right back up. That's how they got me on Dash. I tried to buy a gap and go on TSM like that. That didn't work. And so of course I'm seeing bros yesterday too. And I'm like, oof, I own Toast already. So I knew that bros was kind of dragging Toast up because Toast is in all the bros locations. So I was like, okay, cool. Like at least I'm in something. Yeah. Toast is,
wait, I don't even know what Toast is. I thought it was what is Toast?
Toast is a point of sale system. Right. And they do. You ever gone to the restaurants and you see your server now? They've got that little handheld. That's Toast.
I guess, as soon as you said that, I see the logo.
Yep.
Okay.
And they're everywhere. They're,
Okay.
a bunch on the East Coast is what I've noticed, but even here in the Midwest, you see them all over the place now.
Yeah. Okay. No, I knew. As soon as you said point of sale, I said, "Oh, yeah, that's right."
Yep. Yep. And they do the handhelds. They got like
Yeah.
the screens and they got the
Yeah.
back end for the restaurants and bars and all that stuff.
So that's something that you want to own, and that's a real company,
Yep.
And so for me, I trade two different ways. I trade leaders, and I need to own leaders, and I don't want to touch them. I own Hood.
Leave it alone. That one hurts a little bit for me watching it go. I had it at $50 and man, I bought it on the earnings gap up. I widened up my stop big enough, even on like small enough size that I was like, okay, I'm going to give it 46. And it came and just tagged 46. And this one hurt. So I bought it on I bought this on, what day would this have been? 5/1.
Yeah.
And then, the very next day.
So this might be a good spot for me to share. What the heck? It won't let me do my, well, let's see if this works.
What are you thinking?
I'm trying to share my screen here. It's not working. Okay,
well, you're able to share a window though. I don't know if maybe a screen. I'm not sure. Yeah, Roblox was okay. Roger, we had a lot of these W patterns where you say Roblox was a W pattern. So if you're talking about kind of like this double bottom, a lot of these charts had this, and the leaders in the market, what I like to call them kind of is a undercut and rally. So what I mean by that is it undercut March's lows, but then reclaimed them very quickly in April. And all of the best stocks had that exact same characteristic where you undercut March's lows and you reclaim them very quickly. So if you think about the very best stocks right now, for instance, like a Netflix, right? Undercut March's lows, reclaimed it very quickly. Hood, very similar situation, undercut March's lows, reclaim them very quickly. And the best names have effectively that exact same pattern. Even a CrowdStrike, undercut March's lows, reclaim them very quickly. So the best stocks have all done the exact same thing.
Right. I have my my screen
here we go.
up now.
Yep.
Okay, so when it comes to leadership, so I'll show you how I'm doing Hood. So I bought on May 2nd on this reversal. The reason this is a bit of an odd entry, and I understand it's an odd entry because you're not going to see this in some sort of textbook. But the way I look at it is we're in this momentum phase, right? We're building out the right side of the base. And this super nasty reversal bar, the next day, it's holding this low. So obviously to me, this is support. And so I'm thinking like an institution. And to me, it looks like institutions are holding this level. So I bought here at 47.90 and I put the stop below. And I only do this with like super leaders, right? Like leaders that I know that
high conviction setups.
Yeah, I need to own them. They are a real company that's going to change people's lives, or a real company that people literally use all the time. So I trade these much differently. So I bought here on May 2nd, and then I put the stop below the gap up reversal because obviously this day means something, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to contextualize what I'm seeing on the chart, not for opens and closes and volume, but like what's happening here from the perspective of an institution. And so obviously there's a massive buyer here who's holding up this level.
The gap up, that gap up level. Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I look at it. And so
and this thing's had a few gap ups on the way up now too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so again, frozen rope, it's near impossible. It did give this a really beautiful entry here, which I took advantage of and added to my position. I do always peel into strength. Or sorry, I try to peel into strength, of course. But so you have a leader like Hood, you have leaders like Toast, Zscaler, and these are names that you want to treat differently, right? So these are names that you need to I
What
like
a
to call
move,
them,
man.
yeah.
That 217 level as well. I really liked it. I just wanted like a quiet inside day before it took off,
Yeah.
and it just never gave it. So it's very annoying.
Yeah. um you got names like Dave.
Yep, Sezzle.
Yep, Sezzle. And so these are the group of leaders. And so, I had someone talk to me yesterday and said, when are the new leader? Are we going to see new leaders after this pullback? I'm thinking,
We've got them. You've
like,
got them. They're already, so, the best ones are already established, and they feel like,
yeah,
a name maybe like AVGO,
yeah,
and again, sometimes
right,
the new leaders are old leaders, not every cycle,
yeah,
but, whether it's an AVGO or a Sezzle or a Dave or an Oddity. When's the
yeah,
last time anybody's talked about Sezzle, Dave, and Oddity?
yeah,
Never. And even Carvana, it's been a, App Lovin'. It's like
yeah.
we're in still this somewhat of the same cycle, but we've had a nasty correction and a few extra names have been added to that list of leadership.
Yeah. And so, any new trader or anyone who is feeling left behind, right now, because of the last 6 weeks, you should be actually really thankful because the leaders are so obvious. The leaders are like, you have the leaders and then you have everything else. And it actually makes your job way easier because you don't have to be looking for leaders. You just have to be looking for entries, which makes your job a million times easier.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Yep.
And so
you have a bunch of moving trains. Now you're just
yes.
waiting for them to pull into the station.
Yeah, and you know what trains
are moving fastest.
Yeah.
Which train you want to be on. I want to be on the Hood train whenever it slows down.
Yeah. And
would be nice if Uber can get its act together. That'd be another train I'd like to be on, but it's acting a little weird. But if it can shape up, this is another one of those. That the other annoying one is Spotify. Boy, that thing chopped around so much near that all-time high pivot.
It's such a hard so hard to get into spot.
I mean, I thought the best place was this earnings gap down. Then you had this pickup in volume, and then I would have been buying it through the close of the gap down day. And then it was funny because I looked at crowd in similar light yesterday, where it's like you get the gap down right to the 20, and I'm eyeballing the close, yesterday, and just no dice. It's the market that you're in, right? One takes off in the middle of May when the market's being super friendly, and one you do it in June, as you said, kind of to preface, you've been not getting traction on new longs. Well, surprise, surprise, crowd's not giving you a ton of traction on this day versus what Spotify gave us. Yeah. So, and Cybers act awesome. Zscaler, Rubric, Okta there for a moment. Did you see Net? I don't know if you've even seen Net. Oh my goodness. What?
Yeah, I'm tracking Net.
What is this?
Yeah.
Like this here.
And Oracle,
right? Yeah. This little sideways consolidation, then you come out of the consolidation. Little sideways consolidation, you come out of the consolidation. How the hell does anybody get involved in that?
Oracle is similar in the way that it's just moving and it's like no one's really talking about it. It's just like it came off the lows from that handle there and then just grinds so quietly.
I mean, there it is. I see one gentle pullback.
Yeah.
And this is like a lower kind of Carvana where it's like you get this one move up, you get this gentle little pullback, and then you're just still off to the races.
Yeah, I mean the way that I trade, and I think the way most like traders who have like one setup or two setups, your chart only gives you a entry.
Right, one or two. If you miss it, you miss it.
And which is totally fine.
Right.
And because when that one happens, you buy it with 40% of your account and you're like, all right, let's go, baby. And so getting chopped around, trying to find a way in, it's not my style, but I am very excited for the future because, like I said, the leaders are known. And so you have a list of, call it 20 stocks, and you can just
you can
stay with that list.
Fill up 3 or 4 portfolios with those names.
Yeah.
And they seem obvious at this point, but when you look at a Carvana and you're like, okay, you're looking at this thing, you're like, this thing's likely going to an all-time high, which is just, you wouldn't have said that a year ago. And now you're like, okay, it's going to an all-time high, but how the hell do I get involved?
Yeah.
Well, the train's got to pull into the station. It's got to slow down a touch. And it'd be nice to not get stopped out of all the new longs we're taking.
Yeah. And so we will see if this is a real pullback or not. I mean, we're having like intraday bear markets is what I'm calling it these days.
Well, here's your S&P 500, your ES futures.
Yeah.
You're right back to that 6,000 level as if nothing happened. The only stock left out of that conversation right now is Tesla.
Yes.
Super small minor gap up overnight, but a absolute colonoscopy yesterday.
So that's disgusting. Yeah, and so that is a lot of that's noise. It's not noise for Tesla investors, but as market participants, it's just noise. Most of everything is now noise. We have settled as investors. We have settled into this environment of like tweets and trade wars, and it doesn't even matter at this point from what I'm seeing. And so I'm just trading the action, and sometimes you can't help but hear what's going on because of social media, but just trade the action, and the action is strong. We are definitely in a bull market that hasn't even hit all-time highs, which is really a unique spot to be in. To be in a early bull market just on that right side before the all-time
high breakout. Yeah. How many more stocks will be acting well when the market takes out above all-time highs and has no supply?
Yeah. So for me, to wrap up if you were to ask me in one sentence, we'll give me 2 sentences. In 2 sentences, how do you feel about the market today? And my answer would be, just because I'm taking the day off today doesn't mean I'm bearish. In fact, I'm even more bullish because there's so many leaders that aren't giving me entries. That's how I'd wrap up my perspective of the market is. Today I have no setups to buy because there's so much leadership that's just running. And that makes me excited.
Yeah, I've been wanting some form of digestion here, whether it be a Zscaler or a GEV or even a Carvana. SE is another one that comes to mind that just doesn't stop. I mean, these things just literally do not stop.
Yeah.
Again, and while there may be, new high here this morning for an SE. So it's like just when you think, hey, yesterday is you've got an Uber breaking down, you've got Palantir coming in, you've got Tesla coming in, you've got MicroStrategy acting. That's just a small fraction of the names that have been flying. And in fact, it's totally healthy if some of them come revisit their 50 simple moving average. It's totally healthy if some of them come back and undercut their 200 and finish building out the right-hand side of their charts. But it just seemingly these names aren't stopping. Just when you think, okay, finally, I'm going to be able to, in 8 days, come and get Rubric.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's just like, they're gone. They're totally
Yeah.
gone. And they're not making it easy. And again, it's even the food stocks, Oliver. We're talking Eat looked really good, Shack looked really good, Wing is nonstop off the lows. I'm like, are
That's
any,
yeah.
Cheesecake Factory cake is at all-time high right now. I mean, again, so many names are acting, again, we're talking this might as well just be rubric. You built a nice base,
Yeah.
built a series of higher lows. You're right up against all-time high. Won't be too surprised if this thing's gone and $70 in a few weeks.
Yeah, and I've been hearing the past 2 days people talking about a rotation, and I'm not too sure what they are seeing. We're not seeing a rotation, we're seeing a broadening.
Yeah, I agree with that because money is not leaving
Right.
somewhere. It's like, for instance, I agree with you because gold stocks and gold miners and gold have been strong since last year, March. And in the meantime, interim, you've had semis kind of go through their bear. You've had some software stocks kind of go through their thing. But now we're just starting to get semi participation, and the gold names haven't gone anywhere, right? In fact, Wheaton Precious Metal was just at a high, a 52-week high, a few 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So I agree. Now it's just more participation out there than it was even just a couple of weeks ago. Cybersecurity is coming back on like nothing. I mean, it's like I don't see the rotation. At any moment now, we're just waiting on crude oil and maybe healthcare stocks, and everything's flying.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I haven't thought about healthcare in a long time, and so maybe I should poke around to see if there's any underlying accumulation, because that would be next in line.
Yeah, or like drug manufacturers or something like Lilly's. Maybe is it rolling over into stage 4, or is it just building out this whole new stage 1 base here because of how absolutely monstrous this move was? I don't think Lilly's just going to die, right? You would assume Lilly's just building out a whole new. Some people start drawing squiggly lines and just say, well, this is a whole new bull flag, and I might say, you know what? That's not so insane.
Yeah.
We're talking about a really solid company, right? And so if Lilly goes, these other names will start to go, in AbbVie and a Merck and a AstraZeneca, whatever. So
AbbVie trades pretty well.
It does.
I like trading that more than I like trading Lilly. It is kind of hard to get in, but when it starts to go, it's really nice.
Yeah. And again, these names have made big moves. These are institutional quality kind of names.
Yeah.
They make a bunch of money. They pay a dividend.
Yep. I was going to say, AbbVie, if you can time it right, that's a pretty good investment. If it can turn into investment, it's got to pass day trade status, swing status to get to wear the badge of.
I wish I had this conversation with you a few years ago, man. I had Lilly at $313, and I won't forget it because the next day I caught a gap up. So I had 3,300 shares, and it was right here as it was coming out of what I thought was a little downtrend break.
Yeah.
Right in here. And I bought it right over prior day high. Right. And it closed okay. I mean, I was like, I'm using low of day, right? It's a slow mover. And the next day it gaps up for me, 20, 30 points. And I was, all giddy. Let me take some off the table. And then, of course, it pulls in. And I was like, glad to be out of it.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I mean,
it's and then look at this. Yeah, and then, of course, rolls over and then, never lets you in. And that when they're ready to go, that's what they do. They just never let you in. You talk about frozen rope and then, how much higher it can go from there. Well, the answer is much.
Yeah. I mean, so I personally, I prefer the quicker swings than I do the long investments. If I just happen to get an investment out of it, I'm happy with it. Like, that's why I still own Hood, because it has turned into this easy hold. Most of the trades that I take are not going to be an easy hold. It'll be 3 to 5 days. I make the money and I get out. And so that's the bulk of my trades are 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. But those really special names, you're like, you know what? This is easy. I got some size. I've taken a little bit off, so I feel very comfortable. And you just let that sucker ride. And that's where we are in the market right now. And we're just getting started. We are so early. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it very well could be with the sheer amount of names that we have acting well. Who knows? Who knows what happens from here? Do we just need more digestion? I guess that's the question, the $1 million question for everybody. Because it looked bad, April, didn't it? It looked bad, and how quickly it goes from, man, this looks bad. Is this about to be a super nasty, long drawn out? Where we bounce and I remember all the comparisons to 22. Well, like, guys, expect to bounce. We're going to hit the declining 50 or the 200, and then expect the next leg lower, and then all of a sudden, here we are, and it's, guys, this bull market's just getting started. And it's funny because you, as a trader, you have to, be open to that scenario all times, right? Be able to be super flexible in your thinking.
And I'll leave it at this: the 50-day is still above the 200-day on the indices, and so that tells you where we are, where we're getting such great progress with speculative growth stocks. In the market broadly is still not totally smooth and trending. So wait till we get all-time highs and all the moving averages are aligned. It's going to be freaky. It's going to be awesome. And I might be calling top now.
And the VIX is at 20 and just super low volatility, 0.4% up days.
This might be the top now that I'm speaking this. So I'm going to stop. Yeah.
No, I mean, dude, it's good to be optimistic. Optimists make way more than pessimists. Ooh, and I just want to make sure that if I'm ever buying, I'm buying right. Yep. Things that are tight and things that have built the right-hand side of their chart, and at least from a setup that you've studied and you understand where hey, I'm getting in here and I know my risk, right? Yep. That's the most important part. If you don't know your risk and it's just like some whatever kind of setup in some whatever kind of group, right? Leading stocks, they have some kind of earnings and sales. They've got some kind of a technical setup that allow you to get in with low risk. All the little pieces that end up, allowing you to then end up holding a hood for months and months and months. So, but the first part, I always tell everybody, it's so easy to hold a position once you're in the green. But if you want to play eventually with bigger size, right? How do you get yourself involved so that you're not ever staring at ugly red, right? And for most people, they'll just keep buying it on the way down thinking they're getting some sort of a sweet deal. And then eventually you end up in sedge. Or EMPH, and it's over with, right? The career's done. And that's exactly why so many people don't make it in this field, because it just takes one. It just takes one to ruin it all.
And speaking of you're talking
the solar name, ENPH.
Yeah. So that is people are really attached to that name still.
Yep.
People are like,
that's because they're holding massive bags.
But people that aren't even bag holders are like, well, it ran before, it's going to run again. I'm like, okay,
it's in a bad group, period.
But also take it off your screen. When it acts right, it'll pop back on your screen.
That's right. Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
It'll establish itself above the 200 simple moving average because no big move has ever occurred below the 200 simple. Yeah. Like very simple rule. Like everybody's like, oh yeah, well, NVIDIA had to go up 50%, to get, and then it went up 1,000% when it got above, the 200 simple moving average. So it's like, it's got to get through step one first.
Yep. I agree.
Man, this market back like it never left, dude. So I'm super happy we were able to have this conversation, Oliver. Yep. Thank you for making time on Friday. I appreciate you, and have a great day with your family. Sure. I got to go get ready as well to talk and live stream here, but I know we'll catch up again soon.
Okay. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Guys, cheers. We will enjoy the weekend. We will see you first thing Monday morning.
Right on.
Thanks, Oliver.
See ya, man.
Bye.